You are listening to The Gray Zone, College Football Podcast Edition Week 3, Week 4, I guess? Sure.
The Gray Zone.
Yeah. Coming to you live in podcast world from the Growler House in the village of West Greenville, our new sponsor for the Gray Zone podcast. We love the Growler House. Delicious beer. Here, put your glass up.
Cheers.
Hear that? Oh, listen to this.
Cheers. Yes, I'm drinking a Hefeweizen.
I sip my beer because it's delicious. I've got a G13. It smells like I need to do my shirt laundry. We love this place. Come here for every college football game, every pro game. Enjoy it. Also, come to see my chalk art on the wall that is all about college football. And when I say all about college football, it's about, 20 or something teams that I've got represented up there this time?
Yeah. At least 20.
Hail State, among other things. I won't go into it. Come check it out. Also, brought to you by iONGreenville.net. Do your college football pick'ems. Get them in. Did you do yours last week?
I forgot.
Okay. I'm not speaking to myself here, folks. I'm speaking to Davey McKnight.
Hello.
Can I not say Irish Davey?
You can say Irish.
Irish Davey.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Because I'm going to need your help talking about Notre Dame in a
Yes.
minute.
Well, I mean, I'd like to think I know more about anything besides just Notre Dame, but yes.
Okay. Speaking of number one, we're also brought to you by the number one magazine in Greenville, South Carolina, Bet Greenville Magazine. You can find the podcast in there every week. It's all digital. Everything is free. Every Wednesday we come out now, so check it out. Watch Bet Greenville TV. Learn everything you need to know about what to do, where to go. Anything you can't find there, it's in iONGreenville.net. Now, onto the podcast. God, you're handsome, Davey.
I know. I'm beautiful. Gorgeous, actually.
Fight on.
Fight on.
Do you want to start there?
Yeah, we can start at the the USC out in California. They're done. So I was...
Were you expecting a meeting on the tarmac?
Right. Yeah, almost.
Let's start at the top. So SoCal loses on the road to BYU.
Right.
In overtime, or was it double overtime?
It was overtime again, so that's the second straight win for BYU in
so
overtime.
BYU, it only took them one overtime to beat Tennessee.
Right.
Took two to beat SoCal, but okay.
So, full transparency, I grew up hating the USC Trojans because I'm a Notre Dame fan, so this might be coming as a biased perspective.
Thank you for your honesty. Please be honest. That's what I want.
I want, you got to know that. Here's the thing. Growing up watching USC, especially during the Pete Carroll era, obviously they had a bad period before the Pete Carroll era, but that was also because of bad coaching. There was other things going on there. One of the things that stark to you is USC always had athletes.
Yeah, that's true.
Not just skill position, they just had linebackers in the trenches, pros.
Linemen.
Why, yes, yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy. They had pass rushers. And even if they didn't all turn out to be great pros, they had pros all over their field.
Mm-hmm.
USC looks like a traditional Pac-12 team, and I think people might know what I mean by that.
I don't. They used to define the Pac-12.
Right. So when I say a traditional Pac-12, I should say a typical Pac-12 team. Maybe not traditional.
I'm listening.
Small and quick, but small. They don't look physically imposing. So back, I felt from like in the 90s, the Big Ten used to just be this league that just be super slow. And there's some teams that have some speed issues, but very much lunch pail, blue collar. You had to play that way. It's cold, right? And it's actually, there's a truth to that. Go up and try to throw the ball in Green Bay, in Wisconsin in November.
It wasn't cold enough at Michigan State this weekend, but we'll get there later.
Yes, we'll get there. And what happened is they would always end up playing the Trojans in the Pac-12 Bowl, and they would just get blown away by the size and speed of the Trojans. So they had a combination of both. So I used to say this one thing about the Trojans during Pete Carroll. You had a lot of teams in the SEC that had a lot of speed, but smaller guys, but they had some athletes. And then you had the Big Ten that were big and slow and powerful, but they weren't very quick. USC seemed to have both. Mm-hmm. Now they just seem small. They don't look intimidating at all. And so when the Trojan guy goes out there and throws a spear into the grass, you're like, ugh. It doesn't look imposing anymore, where it used to just terrify you because you realize what was about ready to come.
I never thought that was very imposing anyway.
Well, it may be, but when you had to play those Pete Carroll teams, everything was imposing about it.
The teams for sure. I just, I celebrate the pageantry stuff.
Right.
I'm glad that they have that. They do that
So maybe
with
it
the
wasn't
sword.
so much the sword, but it was the music and everything. Like, it just felt like you were just going to get killed.
Okay.
And it doesn't anymore, and so...
Like Bevo, that's terrifying.
True. I mean...
what's the Florida State guy? What do they call him? Aussie, Asa, not gonna work here anymore anyway, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And he doesn't have a job right now, right?
No, it's still going on.
Yeah,
they're still doing that.
But, yeah. So...
I love that, by the way. That's all I have to say about it.
Right, I love it, too. Oh, it's like probably my favorite pregame ritual thing. I mean, it's because it's on fire, too.
Yeah, it's on fire. It's a spear on fire from a guy on a horseback.
And they used to be the dominant team for like a decade.
They still are.
In water polo, maybe?
Davey's got blood dripping from his nose like a faucet right now.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you.
Okay, sorry. I
Florida State
had a little
is really
aneurysm
bad.
for a second. But back to the Trojans. And so what happened is they're not that good anymore. And I hope, as a Notre Dame fan, Clay Helton stays there forever. But he has to get fired. The AD, Lynn Swan, just resigned. Bad hiring by USC for so many years. Trying to just keeping like the same mentality. What made us great? No. So, for instance, what made them great was Pete Carroll and his recruiting and the star power he brought and got in.
Did you like or respect Pete Carroll?
Yes, I actually really respected Pete Carroll, and I do think some of the things that happened towards the end are really not like a moral wrong. It was money getting transferred in LA by boosters and rappers and stuff like that. Yeah, it's
sign of the times.
Right, sign of the times, but also it's nothing like really bad. When you really think about it, it's not a big deal. I get why they suspended them. I'm not saying they didn't break rules, but it's not like, oh my goodness, it's not Ohio State last year or Penn State or anything remotely like that.
You wouldn't take Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy away, would you?
I would not have. Because I saw what Reggie Bush did to Notre Dame in that Bush game and everyone, and I realized he's the best player.
I miss Pete Carroll in the sport.
Yeah.
Is that okay to say?
Yeah, it is. I think Pete Carroll would be one of those guys.
The Pac-12 has not been the same.
If I was a parent, yes, it's not. If I was a parent, I would be okay sending my son to play for Pete Carroll. Right.
Okay,
I actually thought he looked out for his players.
Yeah.
And some of that has.
Well, also more to the point, if you're a parent, you're probably a parent of a 5 or 4 star playing for Pete Carroll.
Right.
And he's going to get your kid paid.
He's going to get your kid paid.
There's a few coaches doing that today, and I can't blame anybody.
School that does educate their athletes
in LA.
It's
gorgeous. You ever been out there?
Oh yeah, I was actually just at USC this past summer.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful campus.
It is.
Drinking a Hefeweizen, so excuse me for that. It's really good. So I think USC has just fallen. And I know we'll talk about the other USC, the local one, but it's just fun for me, but also kind of like I kind of want them good just because I remember the gold days of when we would, those games mattered. And obviously the Pete Carroll era, it didn't matter on the other perspective, but I want that game to matter because it's a unique rivalry. It's started because Newt Rockney's wife wanted to go get LA weather back in the 20s. So it's unique. I'm not saying it's the best rivalry. It's the most unique one that really for the last 20 years hasn't mattered because either Notre Dame's good and USC stinks or vice versa. And so there's only been like 1 or 2 games that like the Weiss, the Bush push game that's really ever mattered. And so
I remember I actually became a fan of Notre Dame watching Notre Dame on NBC when basically SoCal was beating them every year.
Yeah.
And not necessarily that they should have. And I'm not going to try to bring up bad memories here, but I mean I remember Matt Leinart winning in a way that was let's just say unfair. And nobody noticed because they went on to win the whatever. Did they win the national championship?
They lost to Vince Young, Texas.
Okay, that's okay. But they still got to play for it because of
Young.
Whatever. I won't even get into it. But
yeah, you're right. No, I mean,
I became a Notre Dame fan when they were losing. When Charlie Weiss was there, and when we all thought, oh my gosh,
Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah, Jimmy. Thank you. Of course, Saint Jimmy.
Saint Jimmy.
We all thought he was
Jimmy
the future,
Jesus
right?
Clausen, right? Yeah, our Lord and Savior.
I don't miss that. All right, enough talk about SoCal and the Pac-12.
But that I had to get that off my chest.
How about a
right?
little trivia? And don't answer right away. Let the listeners see if they can get this. Name the only undefeated Pac-12 team right now.
Oh, I know.
You got it? Go ahead.
The Herman Edwards, Arizona State Sun Devils.
I forgot.
So there's another one now.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Give it to me.
Well, I knew. The
Did you
California
know?
Bears.
Maybe this was a bad
This
time
is
to
a
ask this question.
Bad question. What's your team?
I don't think either of those teams are going to compete for the Pac-12 as much as Utah.
Oh, yeah.
They're
not Pacific. They're in the mountain time zone
Still
with mountains.
playing good, solid, fundamental football. They've been quietly competitive for the last several years, and nobody's talking about them again.
Always have good defenses. Their coaches stayed there. He's really built a good program.
Let's put it this way. Right now, I think all the other conferences, including outside of the Power 5, like the American, it seems like we know who's probably going to win, or at least who's going to compete. And the Pac-12, it's like, well, SoCal's out, and Oregon is probably out, right?
Stanford is probably
Stanford
out.
is definitely out. They're bad.
They're
Dave,
bad.
It's okay to say. They're bad.
They're bad.
And then we all just kind of forget, but there's still Utah,
Right.
who finally competed for the Pac-12 title last year.
A Utah team that has good line of scrimmage play. Something that's tough to see sometimes out there in the
Good
Pac.
defense.
Good defense.
Right.
Yeah, sure tackling, all that stuff.
I'm done with the Pac-12. Let's move on to
Pac-12
where do you want to
after
go? Hey, speaking of after dark, weren't we all watching Big Ten football after dark with Iowa and Iowa State and like a 4.5-hour rain delay?
Right.
Yeah, the
was
game
fun.
started at 3:30 and it ended at after 9 o'clock. So it was Big Ten before, during, and after dark.
right.
And what a great game, though, right? No. What a I don't know if we could turn this into a segment, but that has to be one of the worst ways to lose a football game. Is you're down. I think it was 3 points, but it was certainly something like that when they kicked the ball to Iowa State. And an Iowa State guy runs into the guy who's supposed to catch it. He runs into his own teammate. When I say runs into him, he ran into him like he was mad at him.
Yeah.
Like he was doing it on purpose. Like
He had money on
money
the line, right? He
Oh,
had it on the money line. Yeah.
That's where game day was. Tragic.
Yeah.
I clone them. I like Iowa State. Iowa looks like they have a legitimate defense. I don't really think we need to talk any more about that football game.
Don't.
Do you? You good?
No.
Okay,
I
moving on.
Didn't even need to talk.
All right. ACC or SEC? It's up to you. Take your pick.
Oh, what's your question? Like,
Well,
what's better?
where do you want to go next?
Let's talk about the ACC. I think we have a little bit less to talk about there, and I think it's good. Obviously, Clemson,
Florida State and Virginia. Who could shoot themselves in the foot faster?
Right. So
Apparently Florida State. They're good at
Florida
something.
State, yeah, and neither team wanted to win. I do think Virginia is very, very well coached under Bronco Mendenhall. Very well coached.
Yeah, I do too, but I was
It's an
surprised.
Academic school, it's tough to get players in there.
Florida State's not good.
No, they're
And I was
terrible.
really surprised that Virginia didn't compete better at home.
Right. Well, I felt like the first half, the moment was too big for them. I got to see it. I felt because Florida State just looked better in the first half. I felt like the second half, Virginia kind of became the team that we thought, like the 18th, 19th best team in the country, maybe 20th, but we'll lose some games, but you don't want to go play on the road. Of course, Florida State almost won, but
Is Virginia the next best team in the ACC? I mean, aren't they?
either them or Wake Forest.
Maybe Wake Forest. Isn't that weird to say?
weird.
But, I mean, it's okay.
I
Wake
would
Forest is
go with-
legitimately
I would
fun.
go
I
with
just-
Virginia. They have some good players. I like Virginia a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I honestly, enough about that game too, right? Not a pretty ending.
Florida State,
How did that one end?
I've
Didn't Florida State do something really, really stupid? There was a lot of that this
Really?
weekend. We're
Well-
recording this on a Tuesday, so
right,
forgive us.
Forgive us. And at the same time, Florida State does something stupid almost every fourth quarter. And
Every first quarter, and second, and
well,
then
yeah.
I'm spacing
But
out. The third.
But the Willie Taggart fourth quarter shenanigans becomes just so terrible. They don't have the money to buy him out, which is weird to think, Florida State, but they're not a very
Don't
wealthy
they?
school.
Did you hear the story about the girl who was selling lemonade to
Right.
try to raise money to buy him out?
They
Do you
don't-
know how much she was selling each glass for?
$20.
How long did it take her to sell out of $20 glass lemonade?
4 minutes?
3 hours.
Pretty much.
4 minutes. 3
Yeah,
hours.
Pretty much as soon as she opened it up, it was going to be sold out.
I'm
Yeah.
sure enough people by the end of that one had enough diabetes in the state, right? That's a lot
Right.
of sugar and lemon juice.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you have to move on, but I don't know if they can quite yet. He doesn't look like he's a leader of kids or young men.
I think he would be a great coordinator or assistant. I think
he'd be a good recruiting coordinator. I don't think
definitely that.
Yeah, I don't think he could do anything else because I don't think he has any idea what he's doing anymore.
I don't know how big of a difference it is from coordinator to head coach. But for example, Clemson has 2 elite level coordinators, correct?
Yes.
And Alabama's revolving door of coordinators who go on to get jobs. And very rarely do they ever see. Let's put it this way. I mean, no disrespect to Brent Venables, right? If he decided one day to go be a head coach, number one, I would be surprised. Number two, I don't think he needs to. He can basically ask for whatever he wants at Clemson and stay with his kids and his family and be happy in this beautiful town. I'm okay with it. I just don't know how you can tell who's going to be the next great head coach from a coordinator. Don't forget, Dabo Swinney was never even a coordinator. He went straight to head coaching.
Right. So I almost believe that an offensive guy in this era is better suited to be a head coach if he's an X and O type of person.
Okay. Who's better than that? I've got an interesting one for you for that part. We were just talking about SoCal. Who was the last best coach at SoCal?
Steve Sarkisian.
I knew you were going to say that. I'll follow up with Lane Kiffin.
Well, he got fired.
Sure. Was he not still better than Helton?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arguably he was certainly good grief, Tennessee's best coach in the last 15 years.
Sure.
Right? Alabama's best assistant. I mean, you're talking X's and O's. He was making
best offensive assistant. I still like Jeremy Pruitt at that defense.
Sure. My point is now you turn him into a head coach at FAU, and I don't know what you should expect there, but
the first year he had all those JUCO transfers, and that slowed down. So he had a pretty good year the first year, and I think you're realizing it's not really a job you can actually really succeed at. And when you say succeed, like they had they won. Did they win the American Conference his first year?
No. Absolutely not.
But they went like 8-4.
Okay.
9-3, 8-4. So they were a good team. Yeah, Central Florida wins that.
But I digress. Back to the point. I don't expect necessarily the same from Brent Venables or Elliott or anything like that, right?
Right.
So why bother? Why leave when you can make crazy money, be happy, your family's happy.
There's no pressure on.
No
See, that's
pressure.
the thing.
You're winning too.
There's
the
so many
results
of these
are great.
like booster events you have to go to when you're a head coach that you don't have to deal with
That's a
when
good
you're
point.
coordinator.
Press conferences. Did you hear Dabo yesterday?
Yeah, you're right. No, I did not actually.
He actually kind of called out the SEC.
That's good. That's good for him to do that. It's
a little bit. I don't think he deliberately does it to make people sort of support the narrative that everybody else is.
It's smart from a recruiting perspective too, because it seems like a coach that's just not. You want to go play for that guy.
What he was really talking about was how you never know who's going to beat you up week in, week out, who's going to play to their best when you might be sleeping a little bit. And that was the point he was trying to make, because Citadel beat Georgia Tech and Citadel had Alabama tied at the half last year when they played in Tuscaloosa. And, of course, the story becomes Dabo Swinney is slamming Alabama again. And I'm like, y'all are just so lazy.
No. He loves the University of Alabama. It's just, it's fun. Look, we have to shout about something, right? And so at least shouting about college football is kind of at least the least harmless way to do it.
You know what I have more fun shouting about with college football related is when your team loses real bad. When your team loses so bad that you can scream and shout about it. Like Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland, September is honestly... We're going to go to Vegas next year, and we're going to go bet on the first 2 games of Maryland on the line. We're going to put our life savings on it, and we will come home buying an island.
Yeah.
As soon as those first 2 weeks of September end, you do not bet on Maryland. This is the most Maryland thing that's ever happened.
Everybody else seems to struggle in week 1 and week 2, and they're getting their footing in week 3.
Everyone out.
Maryland is so good in week 1 and week 2 that in week 3 you go, oh, Temple? I don't need to watch this game. They lost to them last year. Surely they're going to beat them at home. No. Come on, Owls.
Maryland fools us every year. Every year. I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe their uniforms or their mascot's a turtle, and you think, oh, slow and steady.
Maryland fans are now calling Texas fans and asking how to deal with losing to a bad team for 2 years in a row. Because that's what Texas did to Maryland.
Texas lost to Maryland.
Oh, my God.
At home.
I still like Josh Jackson.
Yeah, I think, honestly, Temple is...
Sorry, Jess Jackson.
Temple's always a good
You're
coach
not-
team, play tough defense.
Yeah.
You can't take them slowly, but that... Honestly, when I first saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, I was surprised. But then, like, the memory flooded back of Maryland after the first 2 weeks of the season, and you're kind of like, oh, yeah, that's right. No, this is actually extremely predictable. So, in other words, we're going to go to Vegas next year, and we're going to bet on September the Maryland Terrapins.
We're going to eat some crab cakes at Caesar's Palace.
Right.
And as we're eating them, we're going to bet high on Maryland in week 1 and week 2.
And then we're going to bet so hard against them in week 3, and
Yep.
then we'll leave after that point.
Parlay.
Because who knows what they'll do at week 4, because maybe they are good. We don't know. But this is the Maryland way.
We won't care because we're going to buy that casino with all the money we're going to make.
Right. They're never gonna, they might ban us if they see us. We're going to be on the watch list in Vegas.
Do you know how not to make money? Betting Alabama to cover the spread.
There's a lot of backdoor.
Backdoor cover by South Carolina.
Right, and honestly though, I felt like a backdoor cover that actually made the score line actually look like what the game really was. South Carolina competed, right?
It did not feel like Tua Tagovailoa's best game in terms of yardage, and yet here we are. He had more passing touchdowns than he's had or any other Alabama's quarterback has had in a game. I think it was 5, correct?
Right.
It didn't matter. The stats didn't feel like what the game actually felt like. Alabama's offense, I say, couldn't be stopped, and yet often they were.
Let me ask you a question.
South Carolina's kicker was terrific, though. I'll give him credit for that. Bad field position.
Let me ask you, Gray, the Roll Tide, Gray Zone. I have never seen a team, especially kind of inferior talent-wise, run against Alabama. Now, I didn't say they didn't run for 300 yards or anything like that, but Nick Saban, what typifies a Nick Saban team from an outside perspective more than anything else, year to year, the only consistency, because he's evolved his offense multiple times, his defense a couple times, but there was always one consistency. You could never run the ball on them. The only team that could was Ohio State because of Zeke Elliott and all those wide receivers, but they weren't just lining up in the power I and running against Alabama.
Yeah.
It can't just be Dylan Moses.
No, it's certainly not. But Dylan Moses is a good example.
It's a good example. That's a significant injury, and you talked about that on the first podcast. People think you can just reload. No, not a player like that. You can't lose a player like that. But
not just a player like that.
It felt like a
more
team defense that was giving up yardage. A team defense that at times could not get any pressure on the quarterback, and then at times they would get some pressure. But it just didn't feel like a Nick Saban. It didn't feel like there was like. Here's another example.
They would make contact but not tackles.
Mika Fitzpatrick, some of your other safeties, Landon Collins, some of these guys that just
Eddie Jackson,
yeah,
Clinton Diggs,
yeah, guys that just were difference makers. If the game was on a line, they would make some crazy play and go back. And now Alabama still won the game decisively, and that's a lot because of the wide receivers and quarterback.
No, it's only because of that. Let's be honest.
Yeah, why is it? What is wrong with Alabama's defense?
Death. I say death. Injury. Same problem. You say you have never seen teams run against them like this. The truth is, that just means that you haven't been watching for it. And I don't mean to be disingenuous about it, except to suggest that the narrative that last year, for example, Alabama was the best team of all time. You know who it made mad? Everybody. Do you know who it made the most bad? Alabama. Because it simply wasn't accurate.
It was not accurate.
If the Clemson game, for example, came down to overtime and it was tied and both teams were playing at their best, Alabama missed more points after the touchdown, right? PATs, extra points, so to speak, than any other team in the country. They missed another one at South Carolina this weekend. They're not the best in so many ways, but their offense is so prolific that nobody notices that Louisiana, not LSU, Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns were able to run all over them. Arkansas, legitimately horrible, was able to run on them. Missouri, all these teams, the Citadel, it's tied 10-10 at the half in Tuscaloosa last year. It's not a coincidence. That's who they've been. As an Alabama fan, I don't understand it because I'm sort of preconditioned to love and understand and expect high-level competitive defense. What you have right now in 2019 is a perfect storm in terms of there's not a lot of competitive depth at all, which is surprising. But again, you have a lot of natural attrition to the NFL, which makes sense.
2 years in a row.
But you've also got guys coming in. However, you've got fewer than ever this time. We've lost some guys. Alabama's about to lose another one, it sounds like, in Alfano, who's one of the number one targeted guy in last year's recruiting class, one of them anyway. The other guy, Trey Sanders, is hurt for the year. He's out, but Alfano just hasn't been able to get his head right. He's not built for this, right? Mm-hmm. It's tough, and it's not necessarily for everybody. And I'm speaking out of my head a little bit. It might be that he just needs some time. Look, Derrick Henry wanted to leave too. His parents convinced him not to. Next thing you know, he wins the Heisman, helps Alabama win a national championship. Nick Saban knows how to turn 5-stars into millionaires. And if you just be patient and trust and work, you're going to get that, most likely, right? It's certainly statistically better than just about anybody, but it's worth the dice roll. They don't have those dudes. Alfano hasn't even played yet, right? One of the best guys in the country hasn't played on the team.
Are they missing on recruiting?
I wouldn't say missing on recruiting so much as they haven't recruited defense so much as they have offense recently.
Recently, okay.
And they've had guys leave, and they've had attrition to injury.
And
they
coordinators losing, I think.
So we lost 8 starters on defense at Alabama last year. 8. That's atrocious.
Yeah.
Oh, guess what? The only 2 who were, I say 2. I'm trying to think. It doesn't matter. Just hear me out. We lost another one, LeBron Ray. He's out for probably the season. Something having to do with his foot at South Carolina. That's a defensive lineman. That's important, right? You understand how important D-line is. Gone, right? So many guys were hurt, injured, and out for the season in camp. Alabama has an injury problem on defense and lacks depth. This is not, oh, woe is me. Oh, Gray's saying this as an Alabama fan. I know you get it. A lot of other people don't. I'm saying, so for example, Clemson fans were upset that Trevor Lawrence wasn't making more passes, and they threw another interception and all this stuff. And I get it, and we'll get more to that later. These are fundamental, fixable mistakes. The problems Alabama has now are not so much fundamental or fixable. On offense, they can't open gaps. Okay, sure, they couldn't open gaps on the road at South Carolina. I get it. You can't run up the middle. No. They couldn't do it at home against New Mexico State. They couldn't do it last year, too. This has become symptomatic now, right? This is part of their identity. This is not something that Clemson has a problem with right now, right? Clemson has a problem with dropping balls and Trevor Lawrence not always throwing a 10 out of 10 ball, period.
Right, that's their only problem.
Tua Tagovailoa is great. It's a good thing their offensive line is able to protect him, so he has all day to do the math, write things down, and decide which one of his elite 4 receivers he's going to throw to, or, God forbid, Najee Harris, who, by the way, can't run the football, but if you pass it to him, he can take off for 38 yards and a touchdown on 4th. This is the point I'm getting at. Alabama threw to Najee Harris on 4th and I think 6 because the kicking is so bad that Nick Saban says, if we can't kick any better than this, we're going to go for it on 4th down. The reality is that's where Alabama is. Special teams, certainly not great. Nowhere near best in the country. And defense, porous. Does not have depth, littered with injury. It's really sad. If you're an Alabama fan, nobody wants to feel sorry for you. If you care about these players, it is simply sad.
Right, and this is what the point I was asking you, because let's say Dylan Moses is not hurt. I still think there's issues on defense. Maybe not. There's not the glaring hole at linebacker.
It's different because Dylan Moses is the Dante Hightower, Reggie Ragland. He's a game changer. He's an exclamation point. He's your Tua Tagovailoa on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure is.
And now he's replaced by who? Another guy who was injured. And who's behind him? A true freshman. The Hulk, Lee, who's sometimes doing okay. But now it sounds like I'm trying to be optimistic, which admittedly I am. He did not do great against South Carolina on the road in his first true start. So
that's what I'm kind of getting at. There seems to be a little bit, I don't know, from an outsider's perspective, I don't feel like this is a fixable. You're right, and I'm glad you touched on it.
Don't feel sorry for Alabama. There's still certainly dudes on the roster.
There's dudes on the roster.
Experience is important. And they did great last year with virtually the same problems, right? They made it all the way to the title game.
And they could definitely, I still say they are a team that can win the championship, but that's predicated on the passing game of Tua and those wide receivers and the pass blocking. That's my point. Alabama, for the last 10 years, if their quarterback got injured, they weren't done. I do feel like if this time it happened, they're done. And when I say dumb, they're a 3-loss team.
What happens next year?
Correct.
No. I'll answer my own question. Next year, Alabama loses, hold on to your beers, y'all, Tua Tagovailoa, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, probably, and Henry Ruggs. Who are you left with? Jalen Waddle. Najee Harris is gone, right? I guess Brian Robinson will still be there at running back, but can't get through gaps. So, who's the? Do you even know who the next quarterback is at Alabama?
It's either Tua's younger brother.
Right? You don't even know his name. Why? Because he's not Tua.
It's T.U. something.
It's Talia, but they call him Leah. But you don't know his name because he's not Tua. He's not that good.
No.
Okay. The other guy, it's Mac Jones.
Mac Jones.
Seems like an easy name to remember, right? But guess what? He's no Tua either. In all sincerity, Jalen Hurts is better than both of those guys. And I mean no disrespect, and there's still plenty of time to develop. But Tua was ready to start as soon as he got there.
You're right.
He is sensational. I love Tua. Just give me a minute to praise Alabama for a minute. Tua is so great. Jerry Jeudy, I hate to use the word best, so I'm not gonna. But I've never seen anybody dance like that on the field. Every time he gets the ball, and he didn't get targeted a lot this weekend at Carolina, but he is so special. And I'm going to miss the hell out of seeing that guy play for Alabama. Devontae Smith, second fastest guy on the field.
You're not going to be able to. This is almost like those wide receivers in that passing game. That just doesn't happen very often.
Take that out of Alabama. Now hear this. November, Alabama plays at LSU, then Texas A&M. Then Georgia, if I remember right, maybe those two games are swapped, and Auburn. If Tua's in that game with Jerry Jeudy, that's a tall order. Maybe Alabama's taller, but not next year, right? And I'm not saying, again, feel bad for Alabama. I'm not even saying they won't be able to compete.
This is just realistic.
But to do that, the defense is going to have to improve better than they were last year, not just this year.
Right. And
legitimate title contender? Absolutely. Flawless? Certainly not. Fixable problems? Not like Clemson. No.
No, I agree.
Not like Ohio State. Not like LSU
Georgia.
even.
Not like Georgia.
There you go.
Yeah.
Speaking of Georgia, we have to talk about this, Davey. Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, then traveling to Athens, Georgia, to deal with the heat and humidity. The irony is it's not going to be so hot this weekend. So Notre Dame's come to Athens. Are you going to this game?
I am not.
College game day is going to be in town.
I will not go.
Okay, I understand. You're not going in part because, number one, Georgia fans are not fun, especially if you win against Georgia. You don't want to be there.
I don't want to be there for that.
Because we may never hear from you again.
Right.
I was at a Georgia game where Georgia almost lost. I'm wearing a Georgia shirt, and I thought I was going to die.
Right. That was Nicholls State, right?
Nicholls State,
yes, yeah, I do remember that game.
Oh, my God. It's Kirby Smart's first home game. Anyway, enough about that. So you don't think Notre Dame has a chance. Go on. Fill in the blanks.
Yes, I don't believe Notre Dame has a chance to win this game.
I think they have a chance. I don't think they're going to win, but go on.
I don't think they might even have a chance to cover the spread. That's how much I think this is going to go. So,
which is what, 14 points?
I've seen down to 12.5. Most of what I've seen is 13.5. So here's my thing. Notre Dame going into the season probably had the best pass rush in the country, which is funny to say, but it probably was them or Ohio State.
Looks like Clemson now, but go on.
Right. Clemson is definitely in that conversation. This is what people were saying, at least preseason.
Gotcha.
Notre Dame had great secondary play, especially in the safeties, seniors, preseason All-American type of players. Good wide receivers, very good quarterback play, decent running back play. But what you thought what it was going to be a strength was the offensive line. Now, if you look at the pros the last several years, Notre Dame just churns pros out into the offensive line. I didn't think it was going to be that good of an offensive line, but it was supposed to be very, very good. They can't open up holes against New Mexico. They opened up some holes against Louisville, but they were inconsistent. I feel like...
Have they done okay protecting Book?
They've done okay. But here's the problem. You can't beat Georgia if you can't run the ball. We had 49 rushing yards last week against New Mexico. And we also don't stop the run that well.
That's what I was going to say. And admittedly, the Irish were playing at home against a team who loves to run the ball.
Right, and they couldn't move the ball against our starters at all. But they also didn't have a quarterback that could throw a forward pass. So
you know who else loves to run the ball?
Georgia.
Yeah, thanks.
And they have a good quarterback.
So and a really like good offensive line for the rest of the time. Yeah.
So I'm getting there. Defensive line play is stellar on the ends. Stellar.
Underrated. I think a lot of people, which bugs me, but admittedly I'm a little biased towards Notre Dame. I like the Irish. Everybody says they're overrated. This is a legit top 10 team. Maybe 10, right? Maybe right on the outside edge. But this is a legitimate team.
Yes, they're a tier below the top guys.
Yeah.
I would say that.
Not elite, but
very good.
Like, to say overrated bugs me. They're overrated every year. They shouldn't be in the top 25.
They're
I think
7,
a lot
8, and 9. You're not going to tell me that Florida or another team that's 9 or 10 is better than Notre Dame. You're not going to do it.
I didn't say that about Florida, by the way.
Right, but they're 8 or 9. That's what I mean, right? Like, yeah.
So Notre Dame is a better team than Florida.
Yes.
We both agree there.
Very much better.
Yeah.
Very so much.
And Notre Dame's, if they lose this weekend, they're out of contention for the playoff.
And they
most
should
likely,
be,
yeah.
unless it's a very, very close game. And,
It's tough.
But here's my point. The matchup is the problem. It's not so much that it's the team. It's not so much that it's Georgia so much better across the board than Notre Dame. There's a lot of NFL talent on this team. There's a lot of athletes on Notre Dame. The speed of Notre Dame is way much more than it used to be. People used to kind of make fun of Notre Dame because they couldn't handle the big teams. There's truth to that. But
Book has developed.
Book's developed, but the
gotten better.
athletes and depth are there. But the weaknesses of Notre Dame are the strengths of Georgia.
Georgia is arguably the toughest
We
team
had
in the country.
senior All-Americans type. Well, when I say All-American, like All-American honorable mention type of linebackers that have started 60 games for Notre Dame. They graduated last year. We had a first-round draft pick, nose tackle last year. He went in. So those are the type of things that we haven't been able to replace. Georgia's going to exploit that. And so what's going to happen is that great secondary and that great pass rush is going to have to watch the run more, and then they're going to look bad. It's not going to be those guys' fault, but what's going to happen is Georgia's going to run them down. And I think with the inability to run the passing game on the road when it's hot, well, maybe not hot, but when it's loud, it's hot and loud, the pass rushers of Georgia are just going to come at Book. And I think it's going to be people. This is one of those games that it's I'm trying to be charitable here.
Uh-huh.
Go bet on Georgia.
Yeah.
Legally. I'm not telling you to do anything bad.
It's not bad, by the way.
It's not bad.
If you're betting.
Right.
Care. Nobody cares.
No one cares. Go bet on Georgia for this game. I expect the game to be about 45-17.
Ooh.
Right, I do. I really do. And I think it's because, and it won't be as bad as that score, but they'll just wear them out. And the Notre Dame guys will just get me out of this place and let me go back to South Bend.
This is, and I'm going to dovetail out of this a little bit, and I'm going to preface this with this is a little bit of a hot topic. So prepare to be triggered, but try not to be.
Okay.
Notre Dame, I think legitimately a top 10, albeit probably right at round number 9 or 10 team in the country. If they lose to Georgia, they'll be out of the top 10, and that's fine. However, with that said, I'm trying to be real careful here, Davey. Notre Dame's certainly a better team than I would call anybody else on Clemson's schedule. And again, let me finish. Mm-hmm. Alabama's going to play LSU in Tuscaloosa the week before. I say the day before the first playoff committee rankings come out.
All right.
If either of those two teams are undefeated, if Georgia's undefeated, including a win over Notre Dame, the committee is going to reward that by putting them ahead of Clemson, most likely, depending on several other things, but probably. I think it's okay to suggest, and frankly okay to assume even, that any of those three teams, and also factoring in Ohio State and Oklahoma, could be ahead of Clemson in that initial ranking. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't really care. When I say the initial ranking, there's also nothing on the schedule to take Clemson to number 1 in their own strength, right? In their own hands. Doesn't matter. You still control your own destiny. My question is, how do we respond? How do people respond? Because right now, Clemson is unanimously number 1 in the AP and coaches polls. Probably will be through the season until those games, until even this weekend. If Georgia wins at home against Notre Dame, they're going to get some first-place votes,
right?
They
should, too. And honestly, and to finish up with Notre Dame, I actually feel like Notre Dame would play Clemson and actually Alabama because Alabama can't run the ball very well, extremely well.
Do you know who Georgia looks like to me? They look like Alabama from 2009 to 2017,
they do.
Right?
Right. And
they look like Alabama pre-Tua.
Right. And I feel like that's...
And I miss it.
Yes.
I want it.
Well, and I feel like
I would rather have that than have this crazy prolific offense.
I would too, because I think what you're going to see is the balance that Georgia has, you can't take. So, the best coach I think ever in football is Bill Belichick, probably on the Patriots. What he does is takes away the best thing you can do. Georgia's best thing they can do is run the ball, but they can throw the ball. Now, I know they don't have the wide receivers like they had last year, and that's actually, I think, a strength for Notre Dame in this game. But you can't, if we sell out for the run, Jake Fromm will torch us. If we try to defend the run, they'll run all over, or pass, they'll run all over you. So that's where Georgia, week to week, can play different types of teams. Alabama this year, it seems like if you faced a team with an elite pass rush that can run the ball and throw, and has a balanced offense, you're going to beat them. If that makes sense.
Wait, what?
If Alabama plays a team with an elite pass rush and secondary,
like Clemson,
or honestly, I would even say, don't trigger people, I would say Notre Dame. I still think Notre Dame would lose to Alabama, but I think the offense would struggle.
I'm listening.
I think the offense would struggle against Notre Dame's defense. You don't have that when you don't have balance. Teams can take that away from you. You can't take everything away from Georgia, and I think that's what makes them so unique this year. Or maybe not unique, but you're right. They are the Alabama team of about 6 years ago, and honestly, I feel like you take away Tua, that's what Alabama should be. Besides Tua, Alabama should be what Georgia is right now.
Is Jake Fromm better than, for example, A.J. McCarron?
Yes, I would say he's a little bit better than A.J. McCarron.
I would too. A little bit better, but comparable, right?
Comparable, very comparable.
In my heart, I would rather have an elite defense, I swear to God, with a game manager quarterback.
As long as you have a running game.
Okay.
But you do. Yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying. Because, again, you can play.
That's what I grew up with. That's what I love. That's what I miss.
You can play a variety of teams. That's my point. Notre Dame is pigeonholed. Notre Dame will be better suited against a team like Clemson. They are not suited to play a team like Georgia because they have balance. And that's what I mean by that.
Moving on. I thank you for taking the time to talk about your team
on Georgia,
preparing for a loss. Okay. Yes. I hope you can have fun with this game.
I want to compete. I'll have fun. I have no expectations. If we compete and play well and lose by 13, I'll be sad in the moment, but I'll be like, you know what? I'm very impressed. So, yes. Alabama
beat South Carolina real bad. I enjoyed the competition. South Carolina was playing to win the entire time, and I love it. Meanwhile, Clemson played Syracuse on the road at night. Syracuse playing to win, but settling for 2 field goals. Trevor Lawrence threw for more yards than he ever has before, and you wouldn't know it listening to anything coming from any Clemson source of information at all, anywhere, ever. Frustrating. I enjoyed the game. I never really felt like it was in doubt. I definitely understand how there were some mistakes, but again, what I was saying before, the mistakes that Clemson had in this game were fundamental, a.k.a. fixable mistakes. When a ball hits your hands, you're supposed to catch it. When you don't, that's a fundamental mistake.
You're releasing the ball too early when you throw the ball, it goes high or something like that.
When you have a false start, which they didn't really do but once, okay? Things like that are fixable. When you drop your punt and kick it too high or kick it too early. Oh, by the way, they didn't have that. When your pass rush with 3 on the line can't get to the quarterback, oh, guess what, by the way? They did that all night long. Clemson looked outstandingly elite, except for the few mistakes that they made on offense that, again, are all fundamental and fixable.
The strength of the team going into this season.
God.
The strength of the team, all the question marks going into the season have been answered. They're not question marks.
The question marks used to be special teams, except that wasn't a question mark. That was an exclamation point. They were bad. Yeah. It's not bad anymore. No. But nobody talks about it because that's what special teams is.
All the defense that you lost, well, it doesn't matter. You have the best player you ever had on the defensive line in Xavier Thomas.
You know, Clemson played at home against Texas A&M with 3 on the line and were able to stop the run to, 61 yards? I didn't look up what they did for the run against Syracuse. But they were playing with 3 on the line again all night long and were torturing Tommy DeVito in his own house. The
can't-
defense is a
yes.
surprise in the sense that they are already elite.
Right.
And it's
No
so
problems.
fun and something worth celebrating that for every pick Trevor Lawrence throws, I figure we should do a shot or a high five or just hug each
Because
other a
you'll get
little
set-
bit longer.
Because Xavier Thomas will get 7 sacks for each pick.
God.
I mean, that's the point. I think what you see now is Clemson is the premier program, along with Alabama, but Clemson's there where they have players everywhere and they have depth everywhere. I know you were talking about the depth of Alabama, but that's what we were accustomed to. Clemson doesn't have issues there anymore. They don't.
Clemson has depth and experience.
Right.
That's something that even when
And
Alabama has depth, they
lost
don't have.
4 guys in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft, and they still have an elite pass rush with 3 guys. Mm-hmm. And so,
Including guys who played in the national
you're
championship
right.
game.
And Trevor Lawrence, he will fix that. It's early. The coaching Clemson has shown they get better throughout the season, especially offensively.
He's not winning the Heisman. Boo-hoo.
No,
Next.
Whatever. Yeah,
That's
next.
it. Deal with it,
He's
y'all.
still winning
It's not
another
happening.
title. Right. It's not
It's
going to
not
happen
happening.
this year. No.
It's okay.
It can happen next year. It's not happening
Tell
this
yourself
year.
right now, and now you're mad at me. Now take 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, Gray, you're right. This is why I listen to the Gray Zone. You're helping me deal with this. Thank you, listener.
You should call it the gray chair.
The Gray Chair.
The
Trevor
gray
Lawrence,
couch.
maybe he'll win it next year. I'm
Right.
hopeful for it.
Right.
I absolutely love the guy. He has no reason to play college football except they make him.
Right. He's a pro right now. He's an inaccurate quarterback that will get that fixed because he's not that inaccurate.
Can I bring some brevity in here?
Please bring some.
He threw 1 pick in the game and had about 18 picks on the sideline going into his nose deep. Did you remember seeing
Oh,
that?
yeah.
I'm not picking on Trevor Lawrence. If that happened to anybody, it's
Right,
hilarious.
right.
Okay,
We've
deal
all
with it.
done
Hopefully,
that, but we
Trevor
don't have
Lawrence is
cameras
laughing at
on
it
us.
too.
Yeah, he should laugh at it.
Good.
It's funny.
He seems to handle all of this stuff well. Dabo Sweeney said it so much this week. These guys made some mistakes. They're fixable, and we're going to work on fixing them. If you're a coach, isn't that what you want? That was part of the problem last year. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence torched Alabama, sure, but he wasn't throwing perfect passes even in that game. And I'm not saying the wide receivers are bailing him out. That's sort of been a story this week. But Trevor Lawrence hasn't exactly evolved yet beyond that game either. So the growth, the ceiling, has still not been hit. You haven't seen an elite quarterback hit his ceiling yet? This is a time to be so excited. When I say this is a time, I don't know what you do now because I don't know when another game is. Look, this game was fun. Syracuse was trying to win and couldn't even come close, believe it or not.
Right.
They had to settle for 2 field goals. I don't see another game that's even going to be close to being competitive like that until, North Carolina? And again, I expect Clemson to cover the spread. Okay, maybe Wake Forest
No,
at home at the end of the year. South Carolina, I think, should be legitimately fun.
Where's that game at this year?
Which one?
South Carolina.
It's in Columbia.
South Carolina showed this weekend.
It's a rivalry game.
It's a rivalry.
You know
game,
what
but
you do with
They showed
those.
this weekend with Helensky. They showed they're not a bad team.
Trevor
Even though
Lawrence-
the record says it, they're not a bad team.
Trevor Lawrence just threw for more yards than in any game he'd ever played in. The last game before that he did that in was the game against South Carolina at home last year.
All right.
Great. It's a rivalry game still. I'll put the money on the elite team every time. I know it's a rivalry. It should be fun. Hopefully it's fun because that game was exciting and South Carolina scored a lot of points and did not come close to a win. I don't expect anybody else to do that this season either. That's why I wished more people would have had more fun enjoying it. Again, I'm not trying to be a crybaby about it, and I know you disagree. It's not all fans. I don't suggest it is, but I do see it from the radio station. I see it from every Clemson website I could find, including TigerNet. I see it from the public voices in the sport and the culture who were doing it immediately. And let me just throw this out there. 24 hours. The players get 24 hours to party. Party after you beat Syracuse on the road with your biggest career arm for Trevor Lawrence. It's okay to party for a day and then let the coaches and you and everybody else dissect it later. The problem is now there's not another game like that. Now they play UNC, Charlotte.
Right.
At
And
Bloodbath.
Georgia Tech. Where I played them, but whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Who Georgia Tech lose to this weekend?
By the way, can I make a joke about that?
Please. I need more jokes.
I mean, we've hit rock bottom. If you're a Georgia Tech fan, this is rock bottom. Let me explain.
Please.
So
I'm ready.
You lost
I'm already laughing.
You lost to an FCS team. That's bad already.
Military team.
Correct.
All of them won this weekend, by the way. Every single military team. Did you know that?
Yes, I
Fantastic.
did. Fantastic.
Here, put your drink up. Cheers.
By the way, so the only thing you can say is Georgia
USA.
Tech just really supports the troops. That's what happened.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. But here's why it's rock bottom, and I think Georgia Tech fans would admit this. You had to move away from the triple option, but it's going to be horrible.
By the way, you didn't have to.
Yeah, you did.
No.
Yeah, Georgia Tech won a national championship when I was a kid, and they were in mediocrity. But it's going to be awful for a couple of years. But here's my point. You lost to an FCS team. You lost to a team with the nickname the Bulldogs. I think there's another team on their schedule that has the nickname Bulldogs. I don't know who it is. Oh, what style of offense does Citadel run?
So it's not the single, it's not the double. I believe the triple option.
It's the triple option.
It is the triple option. That's okay.
That is rock bottom.
All right, yeah, that's rock bottom.
That's rock bottom. I mean, you can't get worse than that. So, but
it's like beating Tony Hawk at skateboarding, right?
Right. But here's the thing: you're not Tennessee, though.
Oh, Dave, what's wrong with you? Don't tell me I'm Tennessee.
No,
you said I'm not Tennessee.
You're not.
Oh, thank God.
Yes.
Man, we were about to fight.
Yeah, we were about to fight.
I just pooped a little bit.
Couple beers. Yeah. Maybe this paper.
No, you're not Tennessee. So with that said, Tennessee beat Chattanooga, an in-state team. They didn't let Chattanooga score a single point. How rude, by the way. Tennessee
they bullied some in-state people.
Tennessee lost to Georgia State in Week 1 at home. Georgia State.
You mean their rival, Georgia State, right?
Oh my God. Georgia State lost to who this weekend?
I know.
Western Michigan.
Oh, yes.
Right? Who scored like 70 points on them.
Right.
You know who Western Michigan lost to in Week 1? Michigan State, who won by like 34 points. None of those teams are good. And Tennessee lost to that.
One day,
Transitive, I'm okay with using it with Tennessee. They both start with T.
One day you need to get me liquored up on this show.
Let's go right now.
No, I'm not ready there. I need to go off about Michigan State.
Oh, okay.
No Notre Dame rival.
Boy, you had an opportunity this weekend, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I loved every second of that. Herm Edwards, I'm not sure if he's a good coach.
There were a lot of wasted seconds for everybody's time on that game.
But, yeah, let's save Michigan State. Let me let that pot simmer for a few more weeks.
Gross. It stinks. Like
it stinks.
Socks
No, but it needs to stink a little bit more.
Gross.
It needs to get a lot of stink.
All right. Let that hate brew in you, David. Let it out.
It's not just hate. It's hatred of the. No, I can't talk about it right now.
Okay.
I'm not ready.
All right.
Like I said, I need to come in and do like a shot of Jameson to get my Irish whiskey up and get my little fist, my Notre Dame fighting Irish thing going.
You want some D'Antonio vodka? Is that a thing?
I just need some Irish whiskey.
It's clear and it's hard to stop. It goes right through your fingers.
Right. Yes. It's very bad offensively, and it's very boring tasting.
And I'm not trying to trigger anybody here. Michigan State and South Carolina were never really that competitive. Michigan State's first most successful coach was Nick Saban, then Mark D'Antonio came around and took them to nearly a Big Ten championship, among other things. They got to the playoffs once and really got embarrassed against Alabama and Derrick Henry. And both South Carolina and Michigan State have kind of gone back to, I mean no disrespect here, but where I really expect them to be.
Right.
With that said, I've thought Michigan State has underperformed.
Because Michigan State scores 3 points a game. That's my point.
Didn't they get 6 in this game? I don't even remember.
Who cares? Maybe there was a 1 in front of the 0. It definitely wasn't a 2 in front of the 0. It's terrible. Again, don't get me. I know you were trying to get me right now. I'm going to stay calm. I'm going to have a little zen moment.
I've already given you a nosebleed.
Yes.
Okay.
That's simmering. Let's stir the pot a little bit more on that one.
Let me give you something to brighten up your day.
Okay.
You still hate SoCal.
Oh, of course.
Imagine spending 14 days in jail for a bribe to get your kid into SoCal who just lost to BYU. That's the joke.
Those BYU players are going to get a lot of good looks at ladies that past weekend.
Ladies and dudes, I don't care. Go for whatever you want, you guys. You've earned it. When you beat SoCal,
They're getting good
you deserve
stares,
a little play.
though. They're just getting stares.
Okay.
But they're getting all the stares from all the ladies and gentlemen.
Let them stay. I heard another comment from the meltdown thread about that game. Let me read it to you. I'm trying to cheer you up a little bit.
Oh no, this is good.
If I wasn't dead inside already, I'd be in a lot of pain right now. I'm 19 years old. That's toaster bath central,
That's
right?
really funny to think about, though. But like, I grew up as in the Pete Carroll era, and just but a 19-year-old has no idea what that is.
I got another joke for you.
Please.
3 words, 3 letters. FSU. Actually, that's not even that funny, is it? That's kind of sad.
That's kind of mean. Not really.
All
It's
right.
funny.
Listen,
Willie
I'm trying.
Taggart, is he a guy?
I don't really.
that you would want to.
I talk about Tennessee with cartoon hate. I'm trying to understand how most fans love one school and hate just about everybody else, but really, really hate several other schools. Like now, Alabama and Clemson have competed at the highest level with some elite quality games in the most important games ever, and it's become a rivalry. I don't necessarily. I say I wouldn't call it a rivalry, except that's not up to me. It is a rivalry. It's already happened.
Yeah, it is.
But for some people, that becomes a hateful rivalry. I don't get it. I like to see the way both of these teams play because I like the way they behave. If this was Baylor having this success with Art Briles, that's a rivalry I can get behind with hating, right? I pretend hate Tennessee mostly because I'm most afraid of losing to Tennessee above any other team. LSU, I don't want to lose to them, but I'm okay with it way more than Tennessee. And if it happens in my lifetime, which it likely will because I'm 40, but Tennessee's pretty bad right now. So hopefully I don't have to worry about it for a long time. But they scarred me with Peyton Manning and all those teams in the 90s and the early 2000s were just destroying Alabama. Not just destroying, but burying us and tried to bury us in the literal sense of trying to get us the death penalty with the secret witness, in quotes, of Phil Fulmer. Disgusting. I don't really hate anybody that bad. I was not happy to see Tennessee fans that sad and that upset because their program was that pathetic. I really don't wish that on anybody. If I had to, I guess it would be Tennessee. But I don't feel that way in the sense that a lot of Clemson fans do about South Carolina, for example, or
vice versa.
Auburn, Alabama, and vice. I really just don't. It's sort of fabricated a bit on.
I feel like there's a unique perspective of
it's
just
fun.
you.
You have to take it over the top, right?
Right.
Do you smell that right now? It's Brussels sprouts cooking in the kitchen. Doesn't smell great. It smells way better than Tennessee, right? You ever been to Knoxville?
I have.
I recommend
I wore a Notre Dame jersey in Knoxville.
Next time you're traveling up Interstate 75, Davey, hold on to your poop for a week.
Yep.
Let it loose in Knoxville, okay? You'll feel a lot better. Lose about 8 pounds in 8 seconds. Just move on.
I could do that.
I feel better already.
Don't you feel better?
See what I mean, though?
They're a laxative.
It's fun.
Right. X-Lax.
UL. Ugh, gross. Who did they play this weekend? Do you know?
Tennessee.
Is it It's got to be a conference game, right?
It's South Carolina.
Is that this weekend?
I
thought South Carolina had Missouri on the road.
Well,
we got the schedule right here for South Carolina.
Excuse the noise. You're right. South Carolina it's not them. It is a conference.
It's Missouri
game.
On the road, right?
Yeah, it's Missouri. Okay, so who is?
We don't have to talk about Tennessee.
No, we have to. It's an SEC team that they're probably going to lose to. That's all I know.
They're a depressed EC team. Depressed EC.
Oh, they're playing Florida.
Depressed EC.
They're playing at Florida. That's right. I know that now.
Have you watched much of the ACC network? Because this weekend, the ACC network premier game, if I remember right, was before the Florida State Virginia Tech game. Virginia game. It was Virginia Tech at home hosting Furman, who nearly took it to the Tech Hokie Birds.
Yeah, it's not a good time to be an ACC guy.
It's a great time to be a Furman Paladin fan.
Right.
F you once, F you twice, F you 3 times, F you all the time, baby. I love the Dins. I was rooting for them against Virginia Tech on the road. I didn't see the second half to see how the Hokies narrowly eked out a win at home against the Dins. I don't like it. I really don't like it at all. Virginia Tech is not great.
They're not good anymore.
And Furman
Florida
should have won that game. I would argue they're honestly a better team.
We're going to talk a little bit about the ACC. Here's the problem. Clemson's a major program. I think Louisville fell off a cliff. I think Louisville will be good under their new coach in the next 2-3 years.
They're silly fun to watch this year.
Yeah. And as a Notre Dame fan, I wasn't shocked by that because I didn't think their team was as bad. It was a toxic coaching staff that made that bad. But their players were not horrible. They were not 2-10 bad. And you saw that. Western Kentucky's never a slouch, and they just boat raced them. Mm-hmm. Virginia Tech, terrible. Miami, I don't know if it's going to work out with Diaz. I don't think it's going to.
Diaz left Temple, who beat Maryland.
Right.
Good move, bad move?
Right.
I think he wanted to be in Miami. I get it.
Yeah, well, he's from there. His dad's the mayor. It makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
But Florida State's bad, too. So those are the 3 premier teams besides Clemson. Of course, Clemson.
No. I mean no disrespect by this, But we've gotten used to Clemson being elite because they've been so elite for the past, 4 years? And they've been trending up for around a decade.
Right.
But before that, they were Virginia Tech.
Right.
Or worse.
Right.
They were certainly not Florida State, who was competing every year.
Definitely not Miami.
Right.
And those teams, maybe
going back.
Miami.
You'd have to go back a little bit
further.
further. We take for granted how good Clemson is now and how long it has not been that way. And again, the future is so bright for Clemson. That's what really trips me out when people get so nervous. You know what? Maybe you won't win the national championship this year, Tigers. That's okay. We can deal with it. Maybe we will next year. Certainly, all you really want and all you can hope for is to be in the conversation. The way Clemson's recruiting, nobody even has a chance to be the number one recruiting class for 2020 except for Clemson. The future is bright.
Right.
It's too bright.
And then,
it's too bright for
and
anybody to care when you complain about about a 4-score win on the road against one of your toughest teams on the schedule.
Well, and I would argue going up into the Carrier Dome and in that environment, in a dome, in a stadium like that, makes it even harder.
I hate to dovetail again, but going back, the reason why I brought all this up in the first place, and I apologize if we talk too much about the ACC, and we're kind of poo-pooing a little bit, but it's not healthy. Here's my whole thing. The reason why I brought it up, stay with me, is the ACC network. I'm glad the network exists. Mm-hmm. There are not a lot of terrific marquee games because of the state of the conference right now. However, the ACC network, what does it mean for every team in the ACC? Free
Cash.
money. Yes, lots of it.
And they also make a lot of money during basketball season, too.
Well, again, it is sort of a basketball conference. I feel like that's okay to say. I don't expect the ACC network to necessarily generate nearly as much revenue, extra revenue, I think is safe to say, as the SEC network has for those partner schools.
Correct.
However, with that said, if the ACC network is able to give all these other teams an extra, say, $10 to $15 million a year, which is certainly within our grasp, that
Florida
should...
State can buy out Willie Taggart then.
Okay, good. Oh, my God. Just give us the
I had
check.
to railroad that a little bit.
Just don't sign the check to us. We'll fill in the blanks, right? Look, my point is, eventually that's going to start paying dividends in a sense of competition. And you're talking teams who have just lost competition.
Right.
Virginia Tech was competitive, and they've fallen off. Florida State was, and they've really fallen off. North Carolina is still kind of trending up. I'm a little bit surprised by Mac Brown.
But Miami, they have fallen off
But here's my thing. Miami, what's the one thing that they were missing? Maybe an extra $15 million is it. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I think the ACC network is really the only boost I can see for helping the entire conference get more competitive on a national scale. I don't expect any of them to compete with Clemson anytime soon, including Florida State, who used to be that team. However, with that said, that money should help all of them. Hopefully, it's soon. I don't know if it will be, and when I say soon, I'm talking 3 or 4 years. So a class.
It will help. It just will not help right away.
Yeah.
It will help. It's going to help. Because what you realize is when you have more money like that, when you finally strike gold with a good coach, well, you're going to be able to re-sign him. You're going to be able to give him that extension. You're going to be able to bring in that coordinator that you need to. You're going to need to be able to update your facilities the way you need to. There's all these things that money matters, and that's
facilities.
And that's honestly why the ACC. And at the beginning of this podcast, I talked about how Florida State has money issues. That's why they've fallen off. Well, if they have some more money, while they might not be as rich as Texas, Michigan, Florida, Alabama, they're going to not be in a money crunch as much. And then you have that brand of players and then that geography that players will come there.
How did Clemson do it? How did Clemson
completely full commitment by the boosters.
Yes.
Complete full commitment by the boosters.
But they've had commitment from the boosters before. IPTE is, to me, one of the most successful booster programs on the planet.
It's one of the first ones, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did they do it to get to this level of success? The answer, and I'm not trying to be tricky here, so I'll just answer it for you. The answer is Dabo Swinney is an elite-level salesman. He convinced these people, including the AD, including the president, to help get behind him, and including the boosters. And there's a lot of millionaires. Clemson, don't forget, is a private school. I'm sorry, a public, but my point is going to be it's not
an engineering school with a lot of rich alumni.
It's a great school,
right.
Exactly. Thank you. You know what? You said it way better than I did.
I went to Clemson.
Clearly.
Yeah, so I'm saying it's a great school with money behind it.
There was money behind it, and there's money behind a lot of these other schools, but you have to go get it. LSU, you mentioned Florida State being a state school. So was LSU. They had no money. That's why they didn't hire Jimbo Fisher, because they couldn't. That caused turmoil at Florida State when he was there. What has LSU done since? They've gotten guys to spend money who have money, including former players like Honey Badger to basically buy them outright a new players facility, right? With those weird looking beds and everything's covered in purple neon, and I don't think anybody can actually sleep in them, let alone fit in them, because some of these guys are beasts.
Fun.
But it's important. It's crucial. I say important. It's literally vital to being able to compete on a recruiting sense, especially when you're landlocked on the eastern seaboard like the ACC for the most part is.
Correct.
Right? So you have to give Clemson credit for being where they are in this sort of dearth of all these other programs, not near another. South Carolina isn't exactly a football-rich state, and Dabo has extracted money, and they've had results from it ever since.
The guy is a hell of a recruiter, and he's not just a recruiter with players, he's a recruiter with the fan base. He's terrific on that. And now at this point, he's created a machine, and as long as he's there, it's not slowing down. This is my, as you know, look, Clemson people. I know I come in as the Notre Dame guy.
You people,
right? Well, hang on, I'm one of you.
Me, buddy.
I'm one of you. I went to Clemson. I love Clemson University. Enjoy this time. I'm a Cubs fan. I had 108 years of torture. My grandfather, who was a Cubs fan.
You're wearing a Cubs shirt right now.
I'm wearing a Cubs shirt right now. We're playing tonight. We're probably going to lose. But anyway, my grandfather lived 98 years. He died a couple years ago before the World Series.
I didn't know that.
Yes, but my grandmother saw the World Series. Look, you get to live in a time that's so great. Enjoy it. As much as I, as a Cubs fan, am annoyed at the team the last couple years, I'm sorry to talk about baseball, but I want to use this as an example.
Good example.
Just enjoy it. Like, okay, fine. Yeah, Cubs aren't winning World Series this year. We won a couple of years ago. You can never take that away from me. Clemson, you're not going to be able to. This is the time to be a Clemson fan. If you don't win the championship this year, it's fine. You got 7 opportunities out of the next 8 to 9 years to win a national championship. Just enjoy it. Have fun. You
know who Clemson's next quarterback is, right?
I don't know his name, but I've seen his film. I'm terrible with names.
Okay, fill in the blank. DJ. Blank.
Usman Zada. I don't know.
Say it with me now. Uiagalele. I think it's actually Uiagalele, maybe I'm saying it wrong.
I'm bad at talking, so this is not fair.
Let's put it this way.
Chase
Price is the backup. He's, to me, arguably better than anybody that Alabama has on the roster or incoming, right? Certainly, DJ Uiagalele is better than any of those guys.
Right.
Right?
Clemson's never going to get the top guy every 2-3 years.
The future is white hot. Oh, and by the way, 4 of the top 5 guys with a heavy lean on number 5. I don't know if he's committed yet. I haven't paid enough attention to it because I've been busy watching football.
And honestly, they are maybe the most fun team to watch from a product level. They really are.
Every time that defense would get their hands on Tommy DeVito this past weekend at Syracuse, didn't you just want to high-five somebody in the room? Like, they were having fun. Why aren't we having fun? Why?
Why? Fun?
Why?
We're
What's
fans.
it going to take?
This is what we're supposed to do.
And more to the point. So, yes, the future's bright. And, yes, we've seen that before. Yes, we've never had a quarterback like Trevor. However, we have had success like this before with Deshaun Watson, future Hall of Famer, maybe? I don't know.
If he stays healthy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's certainly terrific, right?
He's awesome. Yeah.
Arguably better than any quarterback Alabama had before Tua, right?
Right.
Maybe even better than Tua. I don't know. My point is they never had anybody even close before that.
I agree.
And they sure were having fun. I don't know where I was going to go with this, except to say that we're
pleading with people to enjoy this time.
Clemson won a championship 3 years ago, and the response, I thought, was good. The response in a resounding win over an elite-level Alabama team with a 15-0 championship for the first time ever in history was almost the exact opposite of what it was 2 years before. That's what I don't get. That's what it feels like is harder to fight against. And in all sincerity, Davey, I feel like I'm compelled to act responsibly as a fan the way that Radakovich and Sweeney and all these other private leaders from Clemson, so to speak, versus cultural leaders in sense of like radio and websites and blogs and Twitter and that sort of thing. that's what they ask of us. I don't even think they're asking that much. Frankly, I'm kind of surprised nobody else out there really seems to be doing it. I see some guys doing it, like Roy Philpott. He's not directly employed by any of this. He's working on a national scale this week. In fact, oddly enough, Roy Philpott's going to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend calling that game. Yeah. I love Roy Philpott, but he's not directly associated with Clemson anymore. However, obviously, and he'll admit this too, he's a huge Clemson fan.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really see and
computer engineering.
I'm not going to cite conspiracy.
I've had a lot of computer conversations with him.
Yeah. I think he's terrific, and I think he has a very healthy outlook on it. He did a great interview. I can't remember who was out, but you know what? I should just figure out. I'll get a link and put it in the show notes when he talked about Dabo Swinney and how we as Clemson fans should try to just act a little bit more like Dabo every day. And if you do, you will feel better, including about Clemson.
All right, so here's as a Notre Dame fan, we have these banners that show all the national championships. And besides the last 30 years, before that, Notre Dame was the premier team. They didn't have a championship every year. You had that banner that did all the years of the championships. 70, 70, or 73, 77, 88. It had all those type of things. It's not every year. Clemson, you're filling out that pennant, man. You're filling out that flag, and it's not going to be every year. That's fine. You have a flag. You can have tattoos of your year, and it's going to go down your arm. That doesn't mean you're going to win it every year, but you're going to be able to have a tattoo going down your arm of all the years that Clemson won. So just embrace it and have fun.
Taj Boyd at Syracuse when he was there. I say Taj Boyd because their quarterback, I can't remember who the quarterback was at the time, who was not able to play in that game. So Taj Boyd comes in and lights it up. Sammy Watkins was in that game. He had like a 91-yard touchdown run or pass, whatever. You know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. That was sort of the beginning of what we see now, right?
Right.
And it wasn't that long after Dabo got hired. I don't exactly see a potential future where Dabo is not fielding competitive teams.
It was when they were willing to go out and get an offensive coordinator like Chad Morris, and it showed that the alumni base and the boosters and the administration would be willing to do that and invest into that. And that then in the next year or year or two, we brought in Brent Venables. That's when you realize, he's created a monster, and that's not stopping. So enjoy.
I love Clemson.
I'm
a fan.
Enjoy it.
The Alabama fan in me, the Notre Dame fan in me. I loved Elko. I'm not saying he was better, but I wish Alabama, just from a fan of the sport point of view, would be able to hold on to these guys, because I think it's easy to see how beneficial it is to your program to keep your coordinators around, not just your head coach. And when I say not just your head coach, let's be real honest here. The one we're talking about here at Alabama is Nick Saban, and clearly he's more on the way out than he is on the way in. Right? Dabo Swinney can coach as long as he wants, and I don't think he coaches into his 70s, but he's certainly not retiring anytime soon. Signed a 10-year contract for the highest amount ever, and we didn't celebrate that enough.
I think he's never leaving.
I certainly don't think he's ever leaving. I didn't necessarily think that before. My point is, I don't think he's coaching into his 70s. That's all.
I think
he was rich before he came into the sport.
Right. If he's not, here's my thing. If he's not coaching Clemson, he's sitting on Lake Kiwi. Or doing something like that. That's what I mean by that.
He's already doing that. He's
full time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that.
I think he's the kind of guy who stays busy anyway. So he'll be doing something. And I don't know what it is. Hopefully it'll be something to do with football. But it won't, being a head coach, like you were saying, having to do all the handshakes and do all the booster stuff and do all the film and footage, he seems to relish that stuff. The problem is what it does to your family. And obviously his kids are kind of, at an age where he doesn't necessarily have to worry about that, but, maybe into your 60s it becomes taxing. I don't know. I guess this is all speculation right now, but I don't think it's crazy to suggest maybe he retires in his 60s or even late 50s.
No, it's not.
Why not? And until then, nobody in this country, including me, will ever feel bad for anything that happens to Clemson, because everything is about as good as it can possibly get. Right. And that's why I think we need to just simply enjoy it, including the games where there are mistakes. Right. Yeah, target them. Guess what? You got coaches who get paid millions of dollars to figure that out.
You're an Alabama fan. You've watched every game. There's some games Alabama makes during the Alabama's heyday.
You want the truth? Who does Alabama play this weekend at home?
Oh, it's a small school, right?
You say that. It's Southern Miss. Who is Southern Miss? Oh, they're just like any other non-Power 5 conference team, right? No. Southern Miss is a deadly team in terms of non-Power 5. They don't tackle well. They typically go low. And they've beaten Alabama in some historic ways, for example, for sure. Bear Bryant, I think, he won at Bryant, what's now called Bryant-Denny Stadium, for like 20 years. He lost to Florida and didn't lose again for like 20 years until Southern Miss came to town. Do you remember Tyrone Prothro, that catch he had behind the guy's back?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was against Southern Miss.
I do remember that game.
That was basically to seal the win. They needed that
Right.
game. They didn't score a touchdown on it, but it was enough for them to get the win, which they needed to become bowl eligible. Okay? Amari Cooper got hurt against them a few years ago. I'm trying to remember. I got this written down, so give me just a second. 1992, 17-0. 1992 was the year Alabama won the national championship against Miami with Jay Barker. 17-10 was the score that they beat Southern Miss by at home. That was the closest score they had all season long.
Wasn't Brett Favre the quarterback?
I can't believe. How did you know that? Davey, here.
No.
That's fine. Good on you, brother. That's what we have you here for.
Yeah, that's alma mater.
Brett Favre. Yes.
He wore Wrangler jeans too as he was throwing the ball.
Good.
Throwing the pigskin around. He was throwing some wearing some
Good
Wrangler
on
jeans.
you. Yeah. So Alabama's playing Southern Miss. This is not New Mexico State, which is atrocious. I hate that we couldn't find anybody else to play Alabama, and I'm not even going to get into the debate about whether or not we should. Eventually, look, the problem, I think a lot of Clemson fans take it personally when I say I don't like the schedule this year, or I complain about it, and they say, oh, it's not this, it's not. Tennessee sucks. I get it. We're all agreeing on this. Mm-hmm. I think people get mad in spite of the fact rather than because of it. But we have enough competitive teams that it becomes not about Clemson. It's not about Alabama. And it's not even about the NCAA. We have to have something new. Something has got to change. But something has got to be the catalyst for that change. And I'm not sure what it is, because the honest truth is the playoff committee has been doing a really good job at making tough decisions that were the right calls, that therefore are not going to be enough for the fans to revolt enough to change the system the way they did before that created the playoff. Make no mistake, it was because of the fans. But we need that kind of change. We need a body that says we will force this team to play this team so that that excellent team doesn't have to play New Mexico State at home.
Right.
Southern Miss does not fall into that category for me. That's all I'm saying.
Right. I hear you.
I hope Alabama comes out of this game injury-free.
Yep.
Also, if you're listening to this, it's probably Wednesday, maybe Thursday. Happy birthday to my dad, Randy Thompson. His birthday is Thursday.
Randy.
Roll Tide.
Not a better griller out there than your dad.
He's a savant when it comes to grilling. He's about to head to Italy, which I know you love.
Oh, yes. And honestly, if you ever meet Gray's dad and he tells you to buy a bottle of wine, trade in your child and buy that bottle of wine if you need to.
So I was at home a few weeks ago, and I was looking for a bottle of wine to open up, and this. I'm sorry, just let me talk to Davey about this real quick. But I'm like, no, not this. No, not. All of these wines are like celebration wines.
Right.
Like, you just bought a boat and you're going on a 6-week cruise celebration wine, right? I'm like, I can't open any of these. They were all gifted from Dad. He's such a great guy. Happy birthday, Dad.
I was up
Listen
in
to
Cincinnati.
Me. Roll Tide. Love you,
I
Pop.
was up in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Again, sorry. Bear with us.
Please.
Seeing some of your friends, your old stomping grounds. There was a bottle of wine that your dad Randy gave to them that was sitting there. We actually didn't open it because we ran out of some time.
Oh no! Do you remember what it was?
No,
but I know probably a Chateau something.
Probably
right?
It was
maybe
probably
a
French. It was or a Chianti, a good Chianti, a real Chianti, the best line your dad ever said: "You don't have to spend a lot of money to drink good wine."
It's true.
It's true, and so
that doesn't stop him from buying good wines by the case to save a little money.
Right. Sorry.
Dad has some dentist friends that, you know what? I won't throw anybody under the bus here, but let's just say a former Clemson Tiger player, a legendary Clemson Tiger, and they go in together to buy cases of good wine together.
When it comes to the finer things, from a bon appetit. There's probably a better person in Greenville to talk to than your dad.
You'll appreciate this. I was there the other night. He made sous vide filet mignon.
Probably the best steak.
Guess how good the wine was?
It was terrible. I'm
no,
sure.
It wasn't. Not dishwater wine this time.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't barefoot. Wasn't barefoot.
I had it two-hearted to start the dinner too. It was just great. Love you, Pop. Roll Tide. I'm happy for you. Happy birthday. I miss you.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Glad you could be here.
Oh, always.
For our first podcast here.
That's right.
At
the Growler House.
salubrious Growler House in the village of West
They
Greenville.
were so
I have to
accommodating.
mention that because the Growler House is all over the upstate. It seems like there's one in every little city around the upstate, including Fountain Inn, including Spartanburg.
I've been to the Fountain Inn one
Yeah.
like 10 times. This is the first time I've been here.
Is that right?
Because I used to work in Fountain Inn.
So the side we're sitting, I say this side. You see this wall right here?
Right.
That used to be a full wall. This side used to be my studio that I share
do
with Liz
remember
Daly.
this. Yeah,
Loved
I
it.
remember this.
And that
I
was sort of a
remember
dress shop
helping
on
you
38
out, setting up
next door.
speakers one time
Yeah.
in here. So,
And now I have my chalk art wall, which I mentioned because now more people see my art than ever did when I had an art studio here.
sad.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Tyson. Thank you, everybody here at the Growler House. They treat us like kings. We're really happy to be here. Come here, drink a beer, and do your iONGreenville picks and try to beat
Right.
me.
And honestly, they have such a good selection of German beers. That's my style of beers.
See Germans, yeah?
Yeah, it's breaking to do it. I can't do accents, and I don't want you to get some FCC violation, so I'm going to just stop.
Nine.
Okay, I almost went into a tirade, but I just this is you're watching me grow up before your eyes.
Hey, Brandon.
But anyway, the beer selection's terrific here. Sorry, we're getting
No. This is good. Perfect timing.
Perfect
We're about
timing.
to start trivia here. Free trivia every Tuesday. Come
Right.
out. It's fun, including
It's
the music
awesome.
round. That's my favorite thing. Look, I'm talking too much about the Growler House. You probably already know, but come here. I can't wait to come back. Thank you for being here, Davey.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks
Please
for
do your
having
picks.
me. Oh, I'll do the picks as soon as I get home.
Roll Tide.
Go Irish.
Go Irish. It's okay. And go Tigers.
And go Tigers.
Beat UNC, Charlotte, this weekend. All right, see y'all. Thanks,
See ya.
Davey.
Thank you.
Later.
Not red, not blue, not white, not green, just gray. Just gray.